Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving into a crisis that usually happens behind closed doors, but its consequences, well, they're becoming impossible to ignore. We've got data from two states, thousands of miles apart, but they're telling the exact same urgent story. The system that's supposed to protect domestic violence survivors, it's breaking down, and that failure is literally costing people their lives. So, let's start in Washington state, where the stakes couldn't be higher. We're talking about a 15% surge in homicides related to domestic violence. Now, that's not just some number on a page, right? It represents a horrifying gap in a system that's failing people at their most vulnerable moment, the very moment they try to get away. Now, let's jump across the country to Florida. It's a totally different state, but a shockingly similar problem. The main lifeline for survivors, shelters, are stretched to the absolute limit. I'm talking over 95% full, every single night. For so many people desperately looking for a safe place, the door is shut, for one simple reason. There's just no more room. So you see, Washington and Florida, they aren't just isolated problems. They're symptoms. They're flashing red lights signaling a massive nationwide systemic failure. So in this explainer, we're going to break it all down. Why is this happening? Who's paying the ultimate price? And crucially, what on earth can we do to start fixing it? Okay, so let's get right into the big question. Why is the system failing? Well, it's not just one thing you can point to. It's more like a whole series of deep, dangerous cracks in the very foundation of what should be keeping people safe. You know, the advocates, the people on the front lines dealing with this every day, they point to four critical problems that are all hitting at the same time. You've got a devastating housing crisis, you've got massive funding cuts, you have gun laws that aren't being enforced, and you've got a justice system full of dangerous loopholes. Let's dig into each one. Okay, first up, the housing crisis. Think about it. In a place like Florida, rent has just gone through the roof. So even if a survivor makes it to a shelter, what's next? There's nowhere affordable for them to go. This means they end up stuck in the shelter for way longer, which in turn means no new beds open up. It forces people into an absolutely impossible choice: become homeless or go back to the person they were trying to escape. Second, the money is drying up. There's something called the Victims of Crime Act, or VOCA, and for years, it's basically been the financial backbone for services for survivors all across the country. It's the money that keeps the lights on. But recently, catastrophic cuts to these funds are just gutting these programs. They're having to lay off staff, cut vital services, and in some cases, just shut down completely. The third gap is a huge one: firearms. Look at Washington again. Nearly 70% of domestic violence homicides there involve a gun. And here's the part that is just maddening. In so many of these cases, a judge had already ordered the abuser to give up their guns. But if nobody follows up, if there's no real enforcement, that court order, it's just a piece of paper. It's meaningless. And that brings us to the fourth major gap, and it's inside the justice system itself. You have high-risk, repeat offenders who get arrested, and then they're just released right back out on bail, often with hardly any monitoring at all. This creates this terrifying and frankly predictable window where they can retaliate. It puts survivors in immediate, life-threatening danger. So these four failures, housing, funding, guns, and the courts, they don't just exist side by side. It's more like a domino effect. They crash into each other and create this chain reaction with devastating real-world consequences. We're moving from the data now to the actual human cost of this broken system. So what happens when a survivor gets turned away from a shelter because it's full? Or when an abuser, someone with a known history of violence, walks out of jail? The results are just catastrophic. Survivors are left with no choice but to go back. Or they face homelessness, which opens them up to even more danger. You have children whose lives are completely destabilized by trauma. And, tragically, as we saw in Washington, the ultimate price is their life. And this all leads to a truly terrifying paradox. You know, experts will tell you the single most dangerous time for a survivor is the exact moment they decide to leave. That's when the system is supposed to be there, right? It's supposed to be a safety net. But when that net is full of holes, no shelter, no housing, no one enforcing the law, that brave act of trying to find safety, it actually becomes the moment of greatest danger. Now, I know this all sounds incredibly overwhelming, but it is not a hopeless situation. This is not an unsolvable crisis. In fact, the advocates and the experts who are in the trenches every single day, they already have a clear, actionable blueprint for how to fix these failures. And what's so powerful about this blueprint is how straightforward it is. For every single gap we've talked about, there is a direct, proven solution. You see a problem with firearm enforcement? The solution is mandatory surrender and tracking. You see shelter shortages? The answer is expanding capacity and providing emergency housing vouchers. It's a one-to-one fix. Every single problem has a solution that we know works. So let's be clear. This isn't just some wish list. It's an urgent call to action. Number one, fund safety. That means stable, long-term funding, not this year-to-year panic. Number two, enforce the laws that are already on the books, especially when it comes to getting guns out of the hands of abusers. 3, reform the courts so that a survivor's safety is the top priority in bail decisions. And finally, number 4, intervene early. Use tools we already have, like lethality assessments, to figure out who is at the highest risk and protect them immediately. So when you look at all this, the problems are just tragically clear. But the solutions? They're right there. They're within our grasp. The numbers from Washington and Florida, they aren't just statistics. They're a desperate cry for help. We literally have the blueprint to save lives. So the only question left for all of us is, what are we waiting for?